Habits can be your make or break as a manager, especially if you are in your early years or you're looking to maybe create some changes. Habits are important because they are the subconscious patterns and actions that we take that we don't even think about. And our habits are the things that compound into the results that we get. So if you are overwhelmed, stressed, things just aren't going the way that you really want them to go right now, your habits are the first things to pay attention to and reflect on and ask, are these habits actually helping me to be effective, or are they creating the results that I don't really want to be experiencing? Which is why I wanted to do this episode today. Hey, I'm Tash Pieterse, Certified People Leadership Coach, helping you to become a leader people actually want to follow. And this is actually an Instagram reel that I made a month ago that did really well. Lots of people shared it, they saved it, and that showed me that these habits are actually things that people maybe don't think about having a negative impact, and that could actually create a really big difference and change for them. So I thought that this would be a really good short and sharp podcast episode that I could do for you so that you can come back to it. It can be a little bit longer and a bit more in depth versus a 90-second reel that I made. As I mentioned, they are the subconscious patterns and actions that we take. And when we do something repeatedly and we do something enough times, it becomes a habit. And a habit is unconscious. It's not something that we actively think about, yet our habits are the things that compound and give us the more consistent results that we have. So if our habits are aligned with the results that we really want, they're helping us to be the person that we want to be, then our habits are helpful. They're helping us to be the type of person we want to be. But if our habits aren't aligned with who we want to be and they are actions that are actually keeping us stuck, they're actually creating more overwhelm, they're actually making things difficult in the long run, then those habits aren't supportive and they're not actually helping us to be successful. So it's really important that as managers, we really think about what are the habits that we're using and playing into, and whether those habits are really serving us and helping us to be the type of manager we want to be for our team, and also just the type of person that we want to be for ourselves. So that's why habits are really important. And the book that I really love around habit building, habit changing is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I really love his philosophy around making the habits that we want to embody, making them as easy as possible, and the habits that we want to break, make them harder to do and harder to follow through with. But also what he talks about a lot is really having your habits anchored into your identity and who you want to be. So really deciding who do you want to be first and foremost, and then have your actions bring that to life. Have your actions showcase that that is who you are. And that is a lot of the work that I do with all of the leaders that I work with, especially in VIP Leaders, my leadership program, which will be opening for enrollment in the next couple of weeks. So if you are interested, this is definitely the time to jump on to get early bird pricing and early bird bonuses. But the first thing that we jump into in VIP Leaders is leadership identity. So really setting who you want to be as a leader. And we work through the 4 aspects of identity and how they come together to really frame up and anchor who you want to be. And then your actions then support that. If you don't really know who you want to be as a manager, you know that you want to be a good one, but you don't really know what that means. You don't really know how to set an identity that really helps you to be the leader that people actually want to follow, then VIP Leaders would be a good option for you. So head down to the show notes and find out more about it, because the last group for this year will be opening very soon. So let me dive into the 4 tiny habits that I practice as a manager to help reduce overwhelm and burnout and help me to lead more effectively, because that is ultimately what matters to me. The better that I can lead myself and lead my team and my people, the more effective I'm going to be, and the more effective my team is going to be, the more successful they're going to be, the more that they're going to be able to reach their potential and get the results that we need. So that's really up to me and how I am showing up with my team. So here are the 4 habits. Habit number 1, I don't have email notifications or Slack notifications on my laptop, on my desktop. I don't have that on. And when I'm in deep work, I also put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I don't get notifications from my phone either. But this has been a game changer for me. And actually in my whole corporate career, I never had my email notifications on. I never had the little tiny envelope icon pop up to say I have a new email, because it was just too distracting. I would get too distracted by new emails coming in and people wanting things from me all the time that I just didn't get time to get my own work done. Every time I saw an email pop up, I would be like, oh, just check what it is, or I'll just check who it is. And then I would get pulled out of what I was doing. Then I would go and read the email, and then I would decide, oh, I'll just do this later. But every time we do that, that's 25 to 30 minutes it takes for us to reset and refocus back on what we were doing. Now, imagine doing that every single time an email comes through. You're not going to get a lot of time to do a lot of work. For me, a habit that I put in place was I wouldn't have my email or Slack notifications on because I didn't want to create the expectation that I was always available, that people could just email me and I would instantly respond, because that doesn't set me up for success in the long term, because then people just expect that I'll reply, and that's not the place that we want to be in. That's a very big unintended consequence that we don't want to find ourselves trapped in. So that's tiny habit number one. If you are someone who gets distracted a lot by your emails or by other notifications, I really encourage you to consider turning them off, or at least turning them off for periods of time throughout your day so that you can have really deep focus time, because that is so important for you to actually get your more strategic and value add work done. Tiny habit number two. When my team ask me for help, so when someone comes and asks me to answer a question or to help them solve a problem, I always ask at least 3 questions, because I don't want to be the person that answers everything all the time. And that also takes away the ability for them to be their own problem solvers. So I would ask at least 3 questions, which would be, what have you already thought about before you came and asked me this question? What have you already tried and why didn't they work? And what do you think is the best option that you could take? So before even giving an answer, before being the fixer to their problem, I would ask them to really think about what have they already thought about, what options have they already considered, and what would they do if they knew the answer. What this does is it encourages problem solving, critical thinking, and independence and autonomy. Because if we are the person that answers all the questions, gives all the approvals, and they come to expect that we will be that person for them, we actually create a bottleneck in the team, which means that when we're not around, or we're off sick, or when we're really busy, they're just not going to move forward with things until we give our input, until we say our piece. And that is not where we want to be as a manager. Yes, we want to add value and we want to input, but that doesn't mean being the fixer of everything. So this is a really good habit to get into. When someone comes and asks you for an answer or asks you for a solution, what questions can you ask first to help them create their own solutions first? This is a really, really powerful thing to do. And yes, it takes a bit more time in the short term. Yes, it takes a bit more time to ask a few more questions. And often we get caught up in this, oh, well, if I just answer it, then it'll be solved and it'll go away. Yes, that's true in the short term, but we are not here to work for the short term. We're here to work for the long term. Tiny habit number 3. I try really hard not to reply to anything straight away. So this is kind of linked to my first tiny habit of not having my notifications turned on, but this takes it a step further. I try not to reply to any email or any request straight away, because this again creates an unintended consequence that when someone asks me to do something or asks me a question, I will respond straight away and they'll get what they want straight away. Again, we have this short-term thinking where it's like, well, if I just get rid of it now, then it's off my plate. Yes, and we also create an unattended expectation and consequence where we are the person that answers things quickly. And I learned this very early on in my career, where I wanted to be helpful and I wanted to be useful and I wanted to show that I was really fast and that I was really good at my job. But then as I got further along and I got higher up, I got more responsibility, my work got harder. I became known as the person that would just do things really quickly. And that made it really hard for me to do really strategic and value add work when I needed to. And so what I really had to learn was to take more time before I answered questions, answered emails, or delivered work, so that it created a more realistic expectation of what could be expected and what I could actually deliver. I have a standard where I wait at least a few hours to a day, depending on what the request is, depending on what the question is, before I respond. And this gives me time to give a really considered response and to also stop people assuming that I'll answer straight away. And the deeper level to this as well is I learned how to anticipate where this request would go. Because when we respond straight away, we're responding to that one question that they ask, or we're responding to that email at the surface level. But as I got further in my career, I actually started to notice patterns. My background is in HR. So when a manager asks me, oh, what is the leave balance for this person in my team? Early on in my career, I'd be like, yep, this is the leave balance, cool, done. But then as I got further along in my career, I realized that there is a lot more that can go behind a leave balance. So I would then get the answer. I'd be like, so this is the leave balance. This is how it's tracking towards the kind of maximum leave balance that we want. I looked into it and it's been over a year since they last took leave. I would definitely encourage them to take leave over the next couple of months. So if you can look at how you could make that work, or they're getting to the max amount of leave that we would allow them to have as a balance. So you might want to talk about maybe cashing up some leave or what their plans are for reducing their leave balance. And so this is how I learned to anticipate what people might need, or how can I give them the answer to the next 3 questions. And you can only learn to do that by taking more time to reply and really being able to understand what someone is asking. Another thing that you can do for this tiny habit as well is, instead of just answering the question straight away, maybe ask a few follow-up questions. So this is the question you asked me. What's the context behind this? Or is there anything else I can give you to make this answer more robust? Again, it can take more time in the short term to do this, but it can save a lot of time later on, because if you can answer potentially the next 3 questions someone has, that's the next 3 questions they're not going to come back and ask you. So again, we need to think about, how can I give myself time back in the long term by taking a little bit more time in the short term? It's this like dichotomy that we need to work through, but it's a really, really important one. And as a manager, this is something that's really critical to learn, because it will really help you. And my last tiny habit is, I don't cancel one-on-ones or check-ins. This is a really important one. It doesn't mean that I don't reschedule them from time to time. I try not to, where possible, rescheduling one-to-ones, because honoring and respecting that time that you set aside for someone in your team is really important, because it shows them that they're valued. You want to spend time with them. You want to talk to them about what's going on, and you want to build and nurture that relationship that you have with them. If I do reschedule one-on-ones, I make sure that rescheduled time is confirmed and that we're going to meet up at that next time. I really try not to cancel without having a rescheduled time in place, because otherwise it just falls off the calendar and then you never come back to it. And I think it's really important that one-on-ones are really respected. Now, your cadence for one-on-ones is completely up to you. You can decide to have them weekly, fortnightly, monthly, but one-on-ones are not your work in progress meetings or your task updates or your project check-ins. Like, those are not what one-on-ones are for, which is why you might have them less frequently, because you're having deeper conversations around what are they progressing with, what's really challenging right now, what do they want to develop or grow over the next period of time. Is there anything that's worrying them that you need to be aware of that you can support them with? There are just deeper questions that you're having with people on your team to understand who they are, where they're at, and where they want to go. And the managers who don't have these have very disconnected teams. They also tend to have teams that don't trust them very much, because their manager is not spending that time with them. If we don't invest in those relationships, we don't give them the time to be seen, heard, and understood, why would we want them? If you want your team to value you, to want to show up for you, to want to do really great work for you, you need to want to invest that time and that energy back to them as well. And one-on-ones is the way that you can do that. If you don't know how to run these one-on-ones, if you're not sure kind of what questions to ask or how you might be able to structure them, you can grab my free one-on-one playbook as well. I'll put a link in the show notes for you to grab that. And it gives you the questions that I recommend asking in your one-on-ones and how you can structure them. It gives it all in the guide, so you can use that as well. But that is the last tiny habit that, again, it takes time. We're investing that time and energy into that relationship, but it's going to pay off in the long run, because they're going to trust you, they're going to want to show up for you, and they're going to want to do great work for you, which is ultimately what we need our team to be doing. So those are my 4 tiny habits that I practice that make my life so much easier as a manager and a leader, and I know that they will do the same for you. So I'll just go through them quickly so you know what they are, and I recommend listening back to this episode again so that you can get a deep dive into them. And then I recommend choosing which habit you want to work on and which one you think will have the biggest impact, because that's ultimately what's the most important. So number 1 is I don't have email and Slack notifications on, so turning those off at least for certain times of the day, if not all the time, up to you. Second habit is when someone asks me for help, I ask at least 3 questions first before giving the answer to try and reduce being the fixer. Number 3, I try not to reply to things straight away, so give yourself more time between receiving a request and then answering the request. Or at the very least, asking a few more questions to understand the request better so that, again, you reduce the amount of time that you need to have on this later. And habit number 4, not cancelling one-on-ones. And if you do need to cancel them, reschedule them, because you need to give that time and energy into your relationships if you want them to be useful and effective. So those are the 4 tiny habits. I really hope that they have been helpful for you. I would love to know which habit you are going to work on and which one you think that would have the most impact for you. Please send me an email or message me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I really love hearing from you, what you take away from these episodes and how it's been really helpful for you. It really means a lot to me. And as always, if you have any topics or any challenges that you're currently facing that you would love for me to cover in any of my content or in a future podcast episode, again, email or message me and I will pop it on the list and do my research and do a great episode for you. And again, if you are interested in VIP leaders, we are opening the doors again very soon for the last group this year. So if you are interested, go down into the show notes and check that out to get early bird pricing and early bird bonuses as well. All right, I will leave this here. Have a great rest of your week, and I will be back again next week. Hey, that's all from me today. Thank you so much for listening to Lead With Less. It means the world to me if you could take a moment to leave a rating and a review on Apple, or just rate with 5 stars on Spotify. It means a lot to the growth and the expansion of the podcast. And if you know any other people leaders who could do with a dose of inspiration to level up their leadership skills, then please forward on this podcast to them. I would really appreciate it. And as always, if you have any feedback or have any thoughts, please message me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or email. I'd love to hear from you.